What I realized later as I developed my own confidence in speaking up about it and really correcting people if they said something to me that was insulting or even wrote something about me that was insulting, was that it wasn't just about me. It happens to so many Black women, women of color, I mean, women generally, but there's, as layers of this intersectionality of disadvantage continues, the worse the treatment is. And it's something that I'm sure you've experienced in your career, where we are prepared to do the work we've come to do. We're trained in what we are trained to do, and we're smart and we're talented, and people make all these assumptions or want to comment on our bodies or want to comment on our appearance or just make us feel really uncomfortable and unsafe on a daily basis.
Hey Queens and Kings, first off I want to start by saying Happy Women's History Month. I'm sure many of you, hopefully all of you, agree with me when I say that every single day, yes, every single day, women should be honored and celebrated. So this episode 2 of Shalika Unscripted, is dedicated to all the mothers and all the women out there. Thank you so much for being you. Thank you for being superwoman, especially in the darkest hours. Those are the times where it counts the most, and you all are appreciated. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I have not one, not two, but three very, very important women in my life, and I love and appreciate them. So this episode especially goes out to you. So before we jump into this episode, you already know it would not be Shalika Unscripted if we didn't switch things up just a little bit. So you know what time it is. All right. Okay. We could proceed. Now, there's so many women who have made history and who are continuing to make history. And to just list off a few of the Black women who are doing that, we can start with our Vice President Kamala Harris, Michelle Obama, Stacey Abrams, Beyonce, and of course our special guest on today's episode. Cannot wait for you guys to meet her. She just debuted her book, The Three Mothers, which I have to say personally is one of my favorite books of all time. And no, I'm not just saying that because she's family. Now, before we talk a little more about what this book is about, we're going to switch things up again one more time. All right, this is more like it. This is more fitting, I will say. So the book, The Three Mothers, I'm sure you all know about Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, James Baldwin. I'm sure you know about these very, very, very important civil rights icons, but do you know how they became who they were? This episode is going to be focusing on the book, The Three Mothers. So I'm sure you probably caught on by now, but we're going to be talking about their mothers and how they helped shape a nation. So let me just stop talking about it and bring out the author herself so she can tell you more about her book, The Three Mothers. Everyone, please get ready to welcome Anna Tubbs. Hey sis, thank you so much for being a part of episode number 2.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course, sis, you know you're going to have to be on an episode. This is something we've talked about for quite some time now. But before we jump into this amazing book you put together, I have to say I love this book, and I haven't texted this to you yet because I wanted to wait for this moment to let you know how much I really do appreciate this book, and it's just greatness. So congratulations. Oh, of course. Now, on that note, it's time for our toast before we jump into it. So grab your mug. Okay.
What are we toasting to?
We are toasting to you and this amazing book and more continued success. First off, the reviews have been amazing. The billboard in Times Square, what? When does this happen? What? Amazing. You are an amazing mother, author, of course, with this book being your debut. Beautiful book, beautifully written. You're a PhD candidate for Cambridge. Like, this is amazing. You're doing so many great things.
Thank you,
and things I can mention, you're an educator. Girl, there's a lot. You got a lot. The list is long. I'm just gonna stop because, like I said, I can't continue.
I was gonna say, you said enough. You don't even, you're gonna make me emotional, so we're good.
All right, cheers to you, Anna. I love you.
Congratulations. I love you.
And it's going to be a bestseller, New York Times. I'm speaking that into existence. Cheers to you, girl. Let's get on.
Thank you so much. I love you, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited to be on the show and be one of the first people because I know it's going to be big. So this is an honor for me.
Thank you. So let's just jump right into it. So for those of you who have not already read this book, shame on you. No, I'm playing. But for those of you who have not read it, make sure you get your copy. So we're not going to talk too much and go in depth on what is discussed because, of course, I'm not into spoilers. I don't want people to know. I want them to actually read it and enjoy it for themselves. Why did you select these particular women?
Yeah, it's kind of a hard decision in a lot of ways because all I knew when I started my PhD was that I wanted to join others who were correcting the erasure of Black women's stories. And unfortunately, so many of our stories are erased and forgotten and are being forgotten right now. A lot of the current work that we're doing. And so I started to think of the many different layers of erasure that I could attack. And one of them was I knew it was going to be around the civil rights movement because so often when we talk about Black revolutionary history, we talk about our male leaders, we talk about MLK Jr., and we talk about Malcolm X, and many more names people can name if they're men, and they can't think of as many women, which I find to be really awful because there were many of us who were fighting alongside of them. And then after that, I started to think about roles in society that are overlooked, underappreciated, unrecognized, and motherhood came to top of mind. I think that we are so unseen. And this was even before I became a mother. I just think, especially for Black mothers, the work that we're doing, not only for our children, but for our communities and the whole nation, is really unrecognized. And so I wanted to celebrate Black motherhood. And I fell really in love with the notion of the woman before the man was even thought of or even conceived. And then I decided on these three in particular because Alberta King, Berta Spalding, and Louise Little were all born within 6 years of each other. And their famous sons were all born within 5 years of each other. And that really just seemed serendipitous that I could talk about these decades in their lives and how the world was developing through their eyes.
That's beautiful. And Anna, just talk about your inspirations, because as you mentioned, motherhood, that is powerful. And women often shape their children. They mold them. And I love that you touched on that in the beginning of your book. And I know your mother, Nancy, beautiful person inside and out, love her. Yeah. And I know, our three moms, Nana, Coco, and my mom, talk about your inspirations.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many incredible women in my life. And 100% I was very inspired by the women who raised you and raised Michael. And of course, my mom-in-law, my grandma-in-law, my aunt-in-law, and how often they're erased from the narrative as well. I felt it personally, even with Mike's journey as a public figure, when people would interview him about what mattered or who inspired him and who was a part of his team, he always mentioned us. He always mentioned the women in his family. But quite often, once you read the article or see the interview, those parts have been very deliberately cut out. And it's happening, like I said at the beginning, all the time. So I knew it very personally. And then in my own life, of course, this book is about Black motherhood. My mom is a white woman, but she understood from the moment she became the mother of Black children that it's something that's quite politicizing. You really have to open your eyes to the reality that you see your child as the most beautiful being in the world, but the country that they're being born into sees them very differently. Mm-hmm. And so you can't just accept that. Instead, you become this agent of change who's going to do whatever you can to get the world ready for them.
Beautiful. Now, Anna, I don't know if you did this intentionally or what, but the table of contents, powerful. Did you do that intentionally? I can just start off the circumstances of our birth, the denial of our existence, our men and marriages, the birth of our children, our trials, tribulations, and tragedies. I can keep going on. Loving our sons, losing our sons, the circumstances of our death. Our lives will not be erased. Did you do this on purpose, or talk to me about how you came up with this? Because just reading that in order is powerful within itself.
It's so cool because once your book is out in the world, there's a lot of things that people pick up on that you may not have fully intended. I was obviously very thoughtful about the titles, but I was really thinking about them quite separately. I didn't really read them, one to the other, because I just kind of came up with the title after I finished the chapter. I knew I was going to focus on "Oh, you are our," so that people understood that while we're celebrating these three Black women, it's so that you also understand us as Black women today, so that if a Black woman picks up the book, we feel seen, we feel recognized, we're seen as the whole human beings who we are, with all of our complexities being celebrated, and the fact that we're very different from one another. And that's really the strength of our community as Black women. We bring so many different experiences and so many backgrounds. So the OUR was very intentional, but in terms of the fact that it really does read as a beautiful summary in terms of understanding Black womanhood from start to finish, I did not intend for it to be such a whole kind of encompassing table of contents, but it worked so beautifully, and I'm really glad.
It really did. Like, that's powerful. And there's actually a quote that actually came from you in this book that I wanted to read because it really resonated with me, and I felt like that was powerful as well. So, Black women are the ultimate practitioners of this ability to turn tragedy into opportunity, face fear and persecution with faith and unmatched perseverance, and create something out of nothing because it has been required of us. That is deep, and that just explains everything. I mean, as a Black woman myself, that's so true, and it just speaks to my soul. Just talk about, even today, I mean, you're talking about the women in the past, but even today, there's so many things that Black women go through today, as far as medical torture. You talked about that in your book. You talked about violence. Just talk about that.
I think it's something that we are asked quite often. I think more people are recognizing this, I guess, power of Black womanhood, I think more than ever right now with Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris. And that's really important that they're celebrating us, but they so often ask these questions, how are they doing it? Or they just celebrate us for our strength and say, wow, they are so strong and it's so cool that they're able to do this, versus understanding the issues that we're facing and how it really shouldn't be this inevitable pain that Black women have to carry on our own. So the book is drawing attention to that and saying, let's turn that kind of admiration into action. But also the reason we've been able to persevere is because we're not given any other choice. It's either we die as a result of all the pressures that are put on us, which has definitely happened, or we just keep pushing forward day in and day out. And of course, that's different across the spectrum. It's different depending on our levels of privilege. So in this book, I'm speaking to many of the different experiences. I speak about Alberta Burtis and Louise being very different and having different access to education or money. I also speak about some of their contemporaries who didn't survive, because we also shouldn't forget that.
Anna, just talk about your personal journey writing this book. You were becoming a mother, writing and researching on these three very influential mothers.
On one hand, of course, I was very well aware of the Black maternal health crisis. I've been studying Black feminist theory for several years now. And so a part of me felt very afraid and very worried. But in studying Alberta Burtis and Louise, I felt like I had three examples of women who were not ever willing to accept this kind of supposed inferiority or the dangers of Black womanhood as if they were inevitable. Instead, they focused on futures that weren't even visible yet to everybody else. They focused on the possibility that they would be seen as the full human beings that they were, that their children would be seen with dignity and with respect. And so they acted as if, like we said earlier, there was no other choice but to believe that there was hope and faith for the future. Definitely in studying these three, I felt very empowered. And I still feel like I have them as guides. Every time I've read the book several times at this point with all of my edits. And every time I read it, I pick up on some new lesson, depending on whatever it is I'm doing that day or thinking about that day. And so I think that they will be with me always on my journey of motherhood, on my journey as a Black woman for the rest of my life.
You mentioned that all three of these mothers unfortunately had to bury their sons. And we all know that that's a pain that you can't even describe. So just talk about that, and also the assassination of Alberta King, because that's a story that's often untold.
Yeah, and I say at the beginning of the book so that everybody is aware of the tragedy that's coming, in the sense that they are all going to outlive their sons. And in case somebody wasn't aware of it, that you kind of carry this heaviness throughout the book because of how awful that is. And again, it kind of goes back to making sure people see Black women in our wholeness, that yes, there is joy, yes, there is power, yes, there is strength and resilience, but there's also some pain. It's definitely something I really wanted to focus on from the beginning, that you get to know the moms and their dreams and aspirations. You get to know the kiddos when they're little boys and just sitting in their mom's laps, and you feel the pain, maybe in a way that you never felt before when you heard about MLK being assassinated or Malcolm X being assassinated, or even James Baldwin dying later of cancer, that you understand also that these men were human beings, because we speak about them as if they're just literary figures. And I think we've really forgotten their humanity.
And another part that you mentioned that I really, really enjoy, and I felt that it's relatable for a lot of women, is when you talked about Black women or women of color not even being fully seen. And you mentioned a personal experience. And I feel like that's very relatable. You mentioned, you know, Michael Tubbs, that's your husband, and he's accomplished a lot, you've accomplished a lot, but at the end of the day, when people see you, sometimes, oftentimes they see you still as Michael's wife. And you know, that's not fair. And that's unacceptable, that is something that women have to deal with literally till this day. No matter what you do, no matter the places you've gone, no matter what you've seen, you are still going to be hidden in your partner, your husband, your boyfriend's shadow.
And I realized pretty early on that the disrespect that I was facing as Michael's partner is not only my experience. At first, it felt very personal to me. You know, I was only 19 when we first got together, and he was already running for city council, or he started running very shortly after our first date. And so we were really like cast into this spotlight very early on. And many were already assuming that I was in the background and that, you know, or didn't see me at all, or if they did, they said really weird things about me. Very much assumed that I didn't have my own thoughts, that I didn't have my own passions, that like my life was entirely about being Michael's like pretty girlfriend, which I absolutely hated. And it came across in so many different comments. But what I realized later, as I developed my own confidence in speaking up about it and really correcting people if they said something to me that was insulting, or even wrote something about me that was insulting, was that it wasn't just about me. It happens to so many Black women, women of color, I mean, women generally, but there's, as layers of this intersectionality of disadvantage continues, the worse the treatment is. And it's something that I'm sure you've experienced in your career, where we are prepared to do the work we've come to do. We're trained in what we are trained to do, and we're smart and we're talented, and people make all these assumptions or want to comment on our bodies or want to comment on our appearance, or just make us feel really uncomfortable and unsafe on a daily basis. And so I really, as I discovered that and started to realize that it's not just me, felt even more of this kind of call to talk about it and really speak about women's issues and correct the record. And I will say, even with my relationship with the city of Stockton, at first, there were a lot of assumptions about me. And I would say now, as much as it still kind of happens to some extent for those who don't know me as well, there's been kind of a shift in how people understand my identity. And that means a lot. We've kind of come a long way in terms of people getting it. When they see me, when they speak to me in person, I can tell if they've listened to one of my interviews or read one of my articles, where I've made it very clear, don't thank me for being the woman behind the great man. Don't thank me for taking care of him, whatever that means. But you can talk to me about things that I'm passionate about as well.
This is just one copy. Talk to me about the other copy of your book.
Yeah. Oh, the British one?
Yes.
Yeah, they're the exact same. They're the same inside. But when you publish a book, it's really a fortunate thing, actually, if you can get other countries and other places, like the foreign rights, sold as well. So they're actually two separate contracts. I love that question, because so many people have been very confused as to how there are two covers and everyone's trying to get both, which is really cool.
There's another book.
I'm like, I don't know how. I think go to Amazon UK. I don't know how you order it. But yeah, so basically they're like two separate contracts. So it's an entirely different team. I think I have the pink one here. Just for
Let's show them so they can see when they make their purchase. All right, there you go. You have one.
Three Mothers. Yeah, and the American one says The Three Mothers. This one just says Three Mothers.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And also, while we're talking about the book, you have an audio book. That funny story, you had to audition.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Like, what?
It's hilarious. You know, it's so funny. I really was like, okay, I'm going to do the audio, like, no problem. That sounds like I want to do it, because this book is really personal. You know, I talk a lot about myself as well. whatever. And so the audio producer wrote to me and asked, who do you think you want to do this? Do you have like a pie in the sky kind of dream of like an actress you'd want to do this or whatever? And I was like, oh, I want to do it.
Me.
And he was, yeah, me, I'm good. That's my dream. I'm going to do it. And he was like, okay, well, you're going to have, and then they kept like trying to talk me out of it. Like my editor, who I love, and my agent were both like, it's a lot of work. Like, we don't know if you want to do this. They're amazing. They believe in me 100%.
Yes, yes.
But I think they were just like, it's a lot.
So you knew what you were getting yourself into pretty much.
Exactly, like get prepared. And then the audio producer, on the other hand, though, he was more like, no, like you're not going to be good at this. And so basically he was like, well, you can audition, alongside these voice actors and actresses if you'd like to try. I was like, okay. So you can ask Mike. I was like so nervous. I was recording myself on my little voice memo, reading my own words out loud, and like, can I do that? I felt really nervous. But then when I sent it to him, he was like, oh yeah, okay, no, yeah, you're pretty good at this. You can do this.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. It is my book. I did write the book, but thanks. All right, I know we got to wrap this up. So I have a surprise for you. So we're going to do a brain activity. So we're going to make this quick. You're going to have to just throw out the name. So it's going to be related to your book. So when I say a word, I want you to tell me which of the three mothers you feel it describes. All right?
Oh, fun. Okay.
Okay, here we go. So there's no right or wrong answers, just what you think. And all the viewers, if you guys feel the same way, comment below, let us know. But word number one, compassionate.
Bertus.
Okay. Warrior.
Louise.
Protector.
Alberta.
Resilient.
Louise.
Loyal.
Alberta. It's because it could be all of them.
It could be all of them. That's what I'm like, okay, first one. And you're doing great, girl. You're just spinning it out. You're doing great. So
I'm trying to follow the rules. I'm a rule follower.
That's what I love about you. You play. Okay, so this is the last one. Understanding.
Okay. You said understanding?
Understanding.
Bertus.
Bertus. All right, good job. See, you did it.
I feel like I was even across them too. Like I was really trying to like give them all their own moment. And I'm just so grateful to be on your show. This is so much fun.
Thank you. I love you. I appreciate it.
Before I let you go, of course, we got to have a little more fun. Are you kidding me? I've been doing great all episode. I thought this was going to be the one where everything would just flow smoothly. Give me a minute. Okay. All right. Here we go. Now we're talking. So again, if you don't want to buy the hard copy of the book, you can buy the audiobook version, and Anna is narrating that, so you get more of a personal experience hearing her read her book to you. So again, you guys, make sure you go out and buy that book. And for all of my ladies out there, please remember to continue doing you, and of course, look good doing it. Thank you so much for joining me for the second episode of Shalika Unscripted, and I can't wait to see you guys for the next one. Bye.